Okay, I'm going to call the East Bay Community Energy Board of Directors meeting to order for November 15th. Roll call, please.
Albany.
Here.
Berkeley. Dublin.
Here.
Emeryville.
Here.
Fremont. Hayward.
Here.
Livermore.
Here.
Oakland. Piedmont. San Leandro.
Here.
Union City. Community Advisory Committee.
What?
Alameda County.
Here.
Thank you.
Is that a quorum? Public comment, a time in which you can speak to anything that is not on today's agenda, and that would be Jessica. Jessica Tovar, where are you? All right, well, we'll wait for Jessica. While we're waiting for Jessica, why don't we move on to the approval of the minutes?
Can I move approval of the minutes?
Way to go, Biddle.
Second.
Moved by Biddle, second by Mendel. Any objection by the motion? Any questions, objections? All right, minutes are approved with the roll call in attendance. Why don't you give your CEO report?
All right, so I have a couple items here. So first is just the note that we are rented office space in downtown Oakland in a month-to-month temporary type of arrangement. We're going to be moving to 11th and Broadway in a WeWork office space. We're renting space for up to 11 people, and there's some flexibility to go beyond that. The thought is we'll be there for 6 months or so while we sort of work through launch, and then we're going to start a process in the coming maybe 2-3 months to think about where our long-term home is going to be. So the second one is a staffing update. We have 2 new hires, one of whom is here this evening. So Annie Henderson, who's sitting there in the yellow jacket, is joining us. She's our Vice President of Marketing and Account Services, and is coming to us from Renew Financial, where she was the Vice President of Residential PACE Programs. Our other hire is Supriya Renate, who is going to be joining us as our Director of Power Resources. We're currently out for 3 positions. Actually, we have another person who's accepted an offer, our Director of Regulatory Affairs. Melissa Brandt is her name. She's going to be starting in about a week and a half. So we're out for a General Counsel, Director of Technology and Analytics, and a Director of Government and Community Affairs. So over the last couple of meetings, there have been some questions about potential JPA amendments. And so what I heard at the board meeting was we want to aggregate them maybe to twice a year. And so right now there are 2 JPA amendments that I've heard. The first is an amendment to reflect the fact that the local development business plan will not be completed by October of 2017. And the second is an amendment to allow the selection of alternate CAC members. If we think about 6 months, that's sort of January, February timeframe. So I'm kind of actively open to recommendations from folks, and I'll be collecting those. And once we have, whether it's these 2 or these 2 and others, I'll come back in January with the initial list of these are the ones to consider, and then we'll sort of work through that and bring them to the board probably in February. Item D is a quick update on wholesale energy services. So on October 27th, we received 5 bids for wholesale energy services. EBCE convened an interview panel made up of EBCE staff and CAC member Megan O'Neill. We also retained a consultant, Samuel Golding, from Community Choice Partners to support the review. On this November 6th and 7th, we met with all 5 bidders for interviews, and subsequently we set a set of questions that they responded to this past Monday, and so we are in the ongoing review process Next is legislative engagement. So there was a request to engage with a lobbyist from the board, and so I have sought bids from a variety of providers. Monday and Tuesday, I'm meeting with eight bidders, and I'm going to be working with our new Director of Regulatory Affairs to conduct those interviews. Council Member Kalb has requested the opportunity to interview the shortlist, and so once we develop the shortlist, we will be connecting them with Councilmember Kalb. If there are other members of the board who are interested in meeting with them, certainly that's an option. And so let me know if you are. Sort of the big news here is on November 6th, the CPUC certified our implementation plan. So that's a really critical step towards launch. So, now we're really able to move truly towards the execution phase of the implementation. And as we bring on our key vendors, wholesale energy, banking and credit, billing, data management, call center, those are really the three legs of the stool that will allow us to then sprint in the beginning of 2018 to start serving customers in the middle of the year. And finally, agency and customer policy. So staff is currently conducting a review of a variety of operational, customer, financial, and procurement policies. And our intention is to bring sort of an initial list of really focused policies and procedures that are going to be important for operations of the agency in the beginning of 2018. Bring a list of here's the policies that we're really focused on, with some comparables or some that we can use as a basis for the development of recommendations, and then seek the input from the CAC, from the board, on policies, that other policies or in criteria for those policies that we may want to consider. The idea being that in January we'll actually come with a set of recommended policies for things like procurement, RFP, and the like. Finally, and apologies, it didn't get in here. There is an opportunity for EBCE to participate in a grant, or to seek a grant from the California Energy Commission for up to $10 million from the California Energy Commission to support energy efficiency projects in Alameda County. And so the bids are due in about 2.5 weeks. And so in consultation with our council, it's not necessary for the board to approve EBC application for a bid. It will, obviously, if we are awarded the bid before we're able to sign any papers to officially sort of take those funds, I would bring it back to the board. But I just wanted to let you know that opportunity is there, and I think it's actually a really great opportunity. We discussed it on Monday at the CAC meeting. It's a real, I think, significant chance to move quickly on some local development using state funds. And so my intent is to participate in the application, submit the application. But certainly, if there are concerns or questions that folks would like to ask, happy to answer them now, or really at any time. So that is it on the CEO. Oh, actually, and one more. Contract entered into. We did extend Taj Out-Lucine's contract to continue to support us as we go through the contract negotiation with SMUD. And as I mentioned, we retained Samuel Golding to help with the wholesale energy services work. There you go.
Hold on, you want some technical stuff. Okay, any questions of the executive director's report? So I heard something while you were speaking, and maybe I'm just picking the fly poop out of the pepper here. But I heard when you were going over the hires, I heard the term director a lot. It seems like you're hiring a lot of directors. And that could be a problem down the road when you have a lot of directors. I've seen this like at the Air District and other places, that when you start doing like salary surveys and things like that, and you start actually comparing them to directors, if the intent is that they're really going to be directors, that's one thing. But if they're just, like going to be somebody that's your legislative advocate, and you're really calling them a director, when you start doing a salary survey and you're comparing them to a director, say at the Air District or some other governmental agency, East Bay Mud or something like that, the salary gets skewed. So I guess I'm asking, what is your intent with this? Because titles matter.
Yeah, and I think the way I've been looking at titles are, these are titles and salary surveys comparable to the titles and salaries of other CCAs, not direct agency directors. So for these roles, these are senior people that I'm hiring. I'm focused on building kind of the management team, and then once we have our management team, then as we grow, we will be building some more mid-level.
I guess my point is, does a legislative affairs person really need to be a director of the agency?
Let me think about that. I hadn't. Let me think about that. Again, my intent is to bring the leader in the organization for that specific area, and if you're looking at other CCAs and really looking at kind of comparable roles in private energy companies, the director level, the director title is pretty common, but it does have a different connotation in government. So
yeah, I think we have to be careful because we're new, and probably certain departments may be the department of one for a while, and until that department gets up and going, we may want to be careful who we make the director. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think maybe it's a discussion you and I can have offline.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody even cares, but if nobody else cares, then we'll just leave it the direction you're going, or you and I can have the discussion, whatever. But it just kind of clicked in my mind because, like I said, at the Air District, we have had this problem, and it was difficult kind of peeling it backwards once the onion had already been peeled back the other way to try to. It created problems for the executive director or the APCO that then go back and say, hey, look, you're not going to be a director anymore. We don't need this many directors at this agency. So.
Well, I would welcome the opportunity to discuss it, though.
Okay. Anybody else on this item? Go ahead, Director Martinez.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to thank our CEO and offer support for the idea of applying for energy efficiency grants. I think it's, I didn't think it was going to be a controversial item, and when I talked to you on Monday, I think everyone agrees that that's something we should be doing and trying to leverage those funds. So go forth, and I hope we win them.
Thank you. Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. With that, Jessica, we waited for you. We're on public comment now. Anybody else wish to speak under public comment? Please.
You guys are fast. So I wanted to make some comments. We did submit, East Bay Clean Power Alliance did submit a letter regarding the Circle Point, PowerPoint presentation that was shared in a focus group about a month ago. And we were sharing concerns about how the campaign was describing the program, and it seemed to describe very similar other programs that are not like East Bay Community Energy, and so we really wanted to emphasize that the use of the goals of our program really be emphasized in the campaign, and we really see that as an opportunity to educate people about why our program is so important, why they should stay with it and invest in it, right? So that was one of the things. The other thing I wanted to address was that East Bay Clean Power Alliance is also interested, concerned about having more input in these requests for proposals and hiring hiring of positions for the East Bay Community Energy Program. All along, we have weighed in on things like that, and a good example is even the RFP and the search for a CEO. We'd like to continue to be part of that process and continue to give input and make this program as strong as possible. And then also just to kind of reference, I think you mentioned something about, an opportunity for more funding for the program. That is something that East Bay Clean Power Alliance had shared in the past in our briefing packets, is different sources of how to fund different projects within our program so that it's not all dependent on money from the county or the cities, for example. So just to emphasize that we've put a lot of that together and have a lot of resources to share, and so keeping us out of equations like that really is like a loss for the program. So I wanted to emphasize that. Last but not least, I also wanted to just remind folks that the local Clean Energy Alliance is celebrating 10 years tomorrow night from 6 to 9 at the Oakland Asian Cultural Center, and we really hope that you can be there. And actually, if Stephanie could share those cards with everyone, that would be great. And then the next day, we have our Clean Power Healthy Communities Conference all day on Friday, so we hope that you can join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, so with that, I'm going to move to item 5 now, which is the CDA staff recognition of Bruce Jensen, our senior planner at the Community Development Agency. And we have this spiffy little plaque for Bruce that's been signed by the chair and the vice chair, Dan Kalb of the agency. And I just want to say that Bruce, I don't know, Bruce, how many years have you worked on this? 3 years?
Three and a half. Yeah.
Huh?
Almost 3.5.
3.5 years. Okay, I missed it by 6 months. But I do want to say that where a lot of people will take credit for this over the years, Bruce really put his heart and soul into this, working with the community very early on. Bruce was the one that really felt that there was a need to be very inclusive in this process, bring the stakeholders together. Before there was a lot of staff, it was Bruce. And I can tell you that there was meetings where Bruce would have his notes all prepared and ready to go, and always wanted to make sure that we stayed on task. It was really Bruce that got us to the point that we're at right now. And I'm just so pleased that Bruce, early on working with the community and then working with the Board of Supervisors, myself, and Community Development Agency, at a time really when the Community Development Agency was very stretched. I'm trying to remember, you guys were working on some pretty big projects back then. I know one of them was medical marijuana, but that wasn't the only one. There was another big one, and it's escaping me too, but it doesn't matter. But the Community Development Agency was really working hard, and Bruce seemed to be right in the middle of all this, but he was pushing very hard to make sure that this got done and get us to the point. And I felt that it was really important that we acknowledge Bruce for all of his hard work, because it's kind of like, what this is for Bruce, I think, and I'm sure he would probably say it different than me, and I can tell you I haven't wrote these notes, so all this is coming to my head right now. So if this sounds weird, it just came in my head. But for Bruce, this is kind of like having a baby and then turning it over. And if you think that's weird, Bruce, well, I guess it was, huh? But it kind of is in a way, isn't it, Bruce? You kind of helped develop this project, and you got it to the point of infancy, and then you turn it over where it's about to get fun, and everybody's going to start seeing the fruits of the rewards and the hard work and everything. And Bruce, I guess we expect you to stick around and kind of watch it come together. But I'll read this certificate of appreciation. It says, on behalf of East Bay Community Energy Authority Board of Directors, Community Advisory Committee staff, and community, we extend our heartfelt appreciation to Bruce Jensen, Senior Planner, Alameda County Community Development Agency. It is with great pride and enthusiasm that we recognize that Through your efforts, hard work, and leadership, the East Bay Community Energy has grown from concept to a certified community choice aggregation program, preparing soon to launch service to over 500,000 Alameda County residents and business. You are a revered asset to the program and an inspiration to the community, and the Alameda County is a better place because of your efforts. Thank you for your outstanding service dedication to providing cleaner energy options to the residents and businesses of Alameda County. Your contributions are innumerable and insurmountable, and will serve as a benefit to the community for many, many years to come. We applaud you. So with that, Bruce, I'd like to present this to you. We'll give you the floor to say whatever you want. And I think we have cookies or cake or something, I'm not sure, in the back. So Bruce, here. Al, where's your iPhone when I need it?
Stephanie's right in
Oh,
front of
there
you.
you go. Over here by the podium.
I just can't catch the screen. Okay, and a little closer. 1, 2, and 3. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, I said insurmountable and it was immeasurable.
Could have been worse.
Yeah. And a hug. I'm not hugging you, Bruce. Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah.
You just turned it off.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly appreciate this honor. It's wonderful to be recognized, and I certainly appreciate it. I just want to say that as much as I would like to take all the credit that you just gave me, and believe me, what you said is just wonderfully appreciated. It was a real team effort. A lot of people worked really hard on this. All the folks in our shop, Chris Baser, Albert Lopez, Stephanie and her predecessor, Yvonne Grundy, and oh my gosh, Sandy Rivera. She's just like a national treasure. And as for so many projects, she was on this as well. We all worked really hard on this for a long time, and they really gave it their all. And our team from Sequoia, Sean and Seth and Tom, they put in a lot of hours too, working for us, and right there, side by side, nose to the grindstone on this thing. And I also would like to just thank the members of the community who brought this to your attention at first, and who have been there right along. The folks out there, Al Weinrub, who, as I recall, was the original person who brought it to my attention, as well as some of the folks he works with, Jessica and Frank and Barbara and Victor, and just a whole host of other people who just came to all the steering committee meetings and gave of their time freely and graciously to try and make sure that we have a great program here. I think it's been a real good example of democracy in action. Sometimes messy, sometimes frustrating, but ultimately a really good process that ends up in a high quality product. And I'm thankful to have been part of it. It's been very gratifying. Frustrating, but gratifying, and I'm happy to see this program get closer to launch. Congratulations on the implementation plan. That's another major milestone, and that means that we're getting very close to being out the door with this thing. So, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bruce. Anybody on the board wish to say anything? Okay, I have a couple speakers, Jessica Tovar and C. Landry.
Hi, I had to take this opportunity to say thank you to Bruce Jensen, and I know that Barbara Stebbins really wanted to be here and share this moment with you, but she's stuck doing preparations for the next 2 days. But I wanted to just emphasize, I've had to interact with Bruce a whole lot over the last almost 3 years. And, you know, he's been very patient. I always would hear a deep breath every time he heard me. It was me on the phone, because it was always something that needed to get done, or some kind of bomb we needed to drop, right? But he was very patient in addressing a lot of our needs. Sometimes they were very last minute, and he would go out of his way to get the information that we were looking for, make copies for us, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to appreciate that, you know, he's been a part of this since 2014, and we have a lot of messages from different members of the East Bay Clean Power Alliance who wanted to just send a little appreciation to Bruce. So thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. C. Landry?
I just also, as a fellow county employee and previously on the steering committee, I want to thank Bruce for his, what I perceive, outstanding work in bringing this project forward. He was always available for us when we called, and he's been a great asset to the implementation of the East Bay Community Energy Program. So I just want to thank Bruce. And thank you for your recognition also, Scott.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the public? Okay, Director Aldrich?
Thank
I know,
you.
I always call you Ann Olivia, so I threw you a curve.
It works out all right.
Okay, it's still your name.
Bruce, there has been more times than I can actually count, and I haven't worked with you for 3.5 years. I've worked with you for a much shorter time. But in that shorter time, there's literally more times than I can count that you were like, let me explain this really large process and all the complicated history and about 47 layers of politics behind the choice of this word over that word. In talking to my coworkers today who have been part of this process before me, Martha actually started going through the list of concepts that you explained so that she could understand them and become an advocate. The Community Advisory Committee made a card for you, so I'd love to give this to you. But there are not words sufficient to express the depth of gratitude and thanks that we have. Your work, long into the night and with more patience than sometimes it might have felt like was warranted, got us to the point that we are building a model agency that really will serve as a beacon for the rest of the state and the country that has more community involvement than any other program. The effects of this will be felt far outside of Alameda County, and it is due to your work, so thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, nobody else? Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break, so those of you who want to can give Bruce a hug. Those of you who do not want to can grab a cookie. And it is a 5-minute break, because you know I hate breaks in the middle of meetings. I'm going to time it. we have arrived for tonight's main event anyways. We'll move to item 7. Well, I guess it's not tonight's main event, is it? It is one of them. Go ahead.
All right, so Howard, I'd like to have you take it away.
Thanks, Nick. I'm going to provide a brief summary about our recommendation regarding banking and credit services, a bit of summary on the background and the process in making this recommendation, and of course want to take some Q&A as needed. So EBCE staff is seeking authorization to execute a letter of intent and enter into negotiations for final contracts with River City Bank for banking and deposit services, which doesn't have a minimum term attached to it, and with Barclays Bank PLC for a revolving line of credit for a term of 2 to 3 years, excuse me, with an option to extend up to 5 years at some additional costs. There was an RFP issued on September 19, 2017 to 12 financial institutions. We received 2 proposals on the banking and deposit services. One was from River City Bank and the other one was from JP Chase Bank. We are recommending going with River City Bank. They provided a cost-competitive proposal. They're a Sacramento-based bank with high ethical standards, and amongst the panel, we unanimously recommend going with them. I should also add, as part of our interviewing process on November 2nd, 2017, a panel of interviewers which included the Mayor of Berkeley, the Chair of the CAC, EBCE staff, and consultants interviewed all of the RFP respondents. And so that's where we arrived at the recommendation for River City Bank regarding our banking and deposit services. For credit facility services, we received 3 proposals, one from River City Bank, one from JP Chase Bank, and one from Barclays Bank. Barclays is the bank that we're recommending going with for a term of 2 to 3 years and an amount up to $60 million. Those details to be worked out through negotiations and kind of thinking through further working through our financial projections and looking at some of the other credit services that could be provided through a wholesale energy provider. We're recommending them because there's a lot of flexibility in that credit facility for both uncollateralized and collateralized portions of that, which carry different interest rates. They were very transparent in terms of their work, which as a large bank does include some involvement in the fossil fuel industry. But they are a well-capitalized bank. They're based in London. And while we did request them to also provide banking and deposit services, they made an effort, a good effort, to try to partner with a couple local banks. And unfortunately, that wasn't a possibility here. And so in this case, we are recommending sort of bifurcating those 2 services between the credit facility and the banking deposit services. I think that's about it. Any questions from the board members?
Okay, so just let me kick this off, if you don't mind, Steve. I don't know where the board's going to go with this, but to me, I'm a little troubled in a way. And I'm curious to hear what Anna Olivia has to say, being that she was there. But, we took an action a couple weeks ago to move the billing outside of Alameda County temporarily. And that's the way I view it. I'm always going to say that until we get back in here. But I have no problem with Barclays. I realize we need a larger financial institution. I get that. And that doesn't bother me as much as now it looks like we're going to start doing business with the Sacramento Bank too. And I'm feeling like we're starting to miss the mark a bit here. And I heard you say that you tried to reach out to some local banks, or Barclays did. I guess I'm interested in what banks were reached out to. and maybe you can't answer that question, but maybe Barclays or somebody can.
I can answer that question.
Or maybe Anna Olivia can.
So
But maybe these local banks don't understand us, and we should have done a better job going out and talking to them and practicing our story on them, so we're good when we go out to our new customers. And I feel like we missed something here. Now, maybe I'm completely wrong, and it happens. And if this is the way we've got to go for a while until maybe the local banks trust us, that's fine. But I'm a little troubled by it, and I know we talked, was it yesterday, Nick? Yeah, yesterday. I've been troubled since then about this action. Just because it doesn't seem to me like we're keeping it in the family. You know, it's the families in Sacramento, it seems like. So that's my thoughts. I don't know who wants to respond, but that's kind of where I want to start it.
Let me maybe respond quickly about our process for doing some outreach. So we reached out to, we sent the bid package and requested meetings with Community Bank of the Bay, Beneficial State Bank, and Fremont Bank, or Fremont Bank, not Bank of Fremont, right? Fremont Bank. We got no response from Fremont Bank in terms of setting a meeting. We did have a in-person meeting with Beneficial State Bank, and we
What is
had
that bank?
Beneficial State Bank. It's a
Beneficial State Bank?
It's a bank in Oakland, based in Oakland. And we had a call with Community Bank of the Bay. Barclays, and soliciting them very strongly, encouraging them to participate in any way, shape, or form that they could. These are, again, banks that are headquartered in Alameda County, not simply banks that have offices here. And in all three cases, they chose not to participate. And I think the issue that we're finding on the banking side is this CCA endeavor is frankly new, and banks tend to be sort of slow to move into new industries, and so I think it's as simple as that. I do think on the deposit services, the way if indeed we move forward with River City Bank, there's no minimum term, and so moving on our side to begin the process of doing additional outreach to local banks is something we certainly can do. And if the decision is to not proceed with River City Bank, we can do another round of outreach to those three financial institutions and potentially other banks that are located in Alameda County to see if they might be interested in providing these services.
Did you talk to River City about establishing a branch here? I think you...
Yes.
Yeah, so Anna Olivia, why don't you touch on that point?
All right, so I sat on this panel, and I'm also quite interested in getting local everything. I personally reached out to Amalgamated, because that is a really good union bank, and sent inquiries out through the Divest Apple group that actually encourages banks with ethical practices to get more involved. There was a capacity issue. There's words that I didn't understand around waterfalls and lockboxes and all these other things that didn't sound like banking terms to me. But as we interviewed the people who were there, River City, there was this very complicated worded question, and River City was like, oh, here's how we handle this with other CCAs in California. Their exposure rate was good. They were very familiar with things that were happening here. They started as a Sacramento bank and have gotten to Contra Costa County and are looking at opening branches here in Alameda County, but they aren't sure if it'll be first Alameda County or San Francisco. And we're very transparent and honest. They're little. work with their employees. And as the Bay Area is their expansion, they are opening things here. They don't know if it'll be Alameda County or San Francisco County, but they were the only people who even knew what some of the terms were, let alone had any experience doing it. It was a far preferable option to have a California-based bank with a branch in Contra Costa County looking at expanding here than the other options. And Barclays, they were like, we've talked to, and they gave us some banks that they had spoken with, and they're like, they don't have the capacity to do this thing. And as I am not a technical expert on banking, I trusted the technical experts in their answer. I was more interested in the ethical portion of things and the ability to have banks here. And even though the only other bidder, JP Morgan Chase, does have branches in Alameda County, their labor and environmental record is, it stands on its own. And I felt that the ethics test, as well as the transparency and the investments in the fossil fuel industry, which is another thing that this board has expressed a dedication to, was passed far superiorly by River City. So I wish that we had a local bank, but that's of the people that were there, that was a clearly superior choice.
Anybody else? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Councilmember Sophie Hahn from Berkeley, sitting in for Mayor Adeguin. Just wanted to report, and of course this is third hand, but the mayor participated in this panel, and I happened to speak with him just as he was coming back into the offices after that. And I would say he was buoyant. He was very confident about these choices, felt that the process had been excellent and thorough, and that he, I think, fully understood that you can't get everything you want. I know he's very deeply dedicated to the local element, but I think he certainly conveyed to me almost excitement at the quality of the choices that were made, and his very high level of confidence that given what the parameters, the limitations, the capitalization requirements, and all the other factors, that he was very confident with these selections. I would like to say, Chair, that I'm really appreciative that you are so vigilant for the local element and holding that high and first and asking these questions. I just did want to transmit that the mayor was very confident and enthusiastic with these choices. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Hold on. I think, is Martinez, did you want to go? Okay, Thomas? Dr. Thomas?
Yes. The city of San Leandro, the folks that support this process with me, they support this recommendation, although the question I did have, which I'm going to piggyback on the chair here, was exactly what the chair asked in regards to how come we couldn't get this nailed down locally. And I guess my concern, or maybe even more question, is did we have the right people lined up in your corner to speak the right language that was needed to the banks for them to really understand the process, and so, if I'm going in to speak on a specific subject matter, I can't just assume that I know all of the subject. I'm going to have the subject matter, and the people who I'm going to speak to is going to understand that. So I'm just kind of curious, did you reach out to other financial directors within other cities who could maybe been in your corner to help, support the statements or whatever you needed to convey to the banks? I'm just kind of curious on how that, or was it just you guys?
Yeah, so we retained a gentleman named Michael Berwanger from Public Financial Management. They are a firm that specializes in working with public entities to raise capital. They're a financial manager for public agencies, and so he was supporting our outreach and communications with the banks, and so he's very familiar with many of these banks and speaks their language.
Director Spadowski.
Yeah, my question was along the lines of Supervisor Haggerty as well, about the outreach to local banks. And we both sit on the Tri-Valley Transportation Council. And back in January, we were looking for local banking services. And we came up with 5 possibilities. We currently bank with Mechanics Bank. And what's a little bit, not ironic, but it fits the scenario here. It's about the same amount. So we maintain a balance of about $5 to $6 million with the bank. And so we've been with Mechanics Bank for a while, and they have 3 branches in Oakland and 3 in Berkeley, and they are pretty much Alameda and Contra Costa centered bank. We also reached out to Tri-Valley Bank, which is located in Livermore in San Ramon, and they were interested in providing services at the time. Fremont Bank, Union Bank, and Heritage Bank were also invited to submit proposals, and they declined at the time. I don't know the specific reasons, but I heard that Fremont Bank, their issue was that they do not currently offer analyzed accounts, which is something that's required under the per California law for public financing. So I'm not too sure what the specifics are on that. Maybe that's why Fremont Bank didn't participate in this endeavor, but at least it would be my preference for a local community bank, and maybe looking into Mechanics and Tri-Valley Bank that have experience with a local agent. It's not a EBCE type, CCE endeavor, but maybe they would be willing to entertain an offer as well. So.
Well, I think one of the advantages of River City is they've had experience with organizations just like ours. There's 4 listed in our backup. They work with Marin Clean Energy, Silicon Valley Clean Energy, Sonoma Clean Power, and Monterey Clean Power.
Okay, well, we've had the discussion. I'm just to the point where we've done a couple things here, and it hasn't been in Alameda County. And it's starting to concern me. And so we've had the discussion. The committee appears to be comfortable with the direction this banking is going. I trust the people that were on, I trust the judgment of the people that were on the committee that did the interviewing. I'm willing to stick my toe in the water on this, but I would like to revisit this relatively soon, to be honest with you, because as Director Spadowski just pointed out, there was 2 Mechanics Bank, Contra Costa County and Alameda County bank branches, and Heritage Bank, I think, or Tri-Valley Bank, who I think is only in the Tri-Valley, correct? I don't know, maybe only 1 branch.
It's only Livermore. Sorry, Livermore and San Ramon. So I'm being a little Tri-Valley centric here. So
it's
sorry.
a little Tri-Valley centric, so you guys may not go for that one. You guys might.
No, we should.
But I think they weren't given the opportunity to bid because you didn't go to those 2. So I, as the chair, not seeing anything else. Sophie?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to point out that, very sadly, Mechanics Bank is no longer a local bank. It's owned by a private equity firm out of Dallas, so it's been bought out. I used to be a big fan of Mechanics, but they're just owned by a private equity firm now. And I did want to point out that the Oakland Public Banking Initiative is, I think, moving forward with quite a bit of gusto, and perhaps that will be an option for us in the future. So I support Chair Haggerty's idea that we might want to revisit this in the future if banking opportunities come available that are in fact truly local in the Alameda County.
Well, okay. So I appreciate that, Sophie, but I would be careful commingling our money with that bank as long as cannabis is a Schedule I with the federal government. It's a whole different can of worms we can talk about later. Another day, down the road, federal government and all that stuff, but we can have that discussion. But I agree. looking for a motion, I guess.
Or just
Spadowski.
one other comment. So is this an issue of timing? We need to get this settled relatively quickly so we can continue forward with it, because I am concerned that we do need to get up and running. I don't want to throw monkey wrench after monkey wrench into the process, and then something happens legislatively and it just turns into a nightmare. So with that said, I am willing to go forward with it, with the same caveat that I would like a continual process of looking for local funding solutions, because we're not necessarily, under contract committing to this for, as I understand, we could switch at any time.
Yeah, so for the account services, there's no minimum term, so we can switch anytime. I will say one of the challenges is in CCA account services, there are added layers of complexity.
Okay.
Really, what we're talking about here, these are the accounts that our energy suppliers draw from.
Right.
So we enter into a contract for wind or solar or blocks of unspecified energy, and they only enter into those contracts if the bank has what is called a lockbox structure.
Gotcha.
So they know that they have rights to the revenue from the customer. And so that is a relatively more complex banking structure that typical retail banks may not have. So what I will say is we will absolutely do outreach to mechanics, Tri-Valley, and any other local banks. And if through that outreach it becomes clear that there's capability or there's a roadmap, we're committed to working with them to get them to the point where they're able to become our account service bank.
Okay. I just don't want to create another roadblock. If this is something that we can continue to work on and eventually fix, then I'd be willing to hesitantly aye tonight on this one.
Yeah, I would say we can do that. I will though say of the two, the credit piece is the most important from a timing standpoint, but we don't have a lot of time on the account side either.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, no problem.
I want to thank Sophie for letting me know that Mechanics is now owned by a private equity firm. I'm going to bring that back to TUTC.
Yeah, no, I noted that down.
That's good information. Thank you. It's sad. Sad but true.
Okay,
Biddle.
Okay, then I move the staff recommendation.
Okay, motion by Biddle, second by Rude. Any objection to the motion? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you for the discussion. Hopefully staff will be cognizant of the issue going forward. Not that they're not, I understand. Move to item 8. Nick, are you going to kick this off?
Yeah. So are you guys ready? Yeah. Okay. Yep. Perfect. Great. So this is an update on the status of the local development business plan, where we are in regards to certain of the draft work products, and an overview of the process going forward. About a week and a half ago, I don't want to jump in when you're going to cover it, but I will say about a week and a half ago, we posted 5 draft work products to the EBCE website, opening a 30-day public comment period. That comment period is an opportunity for all members of the EBCE community and Alameda County residents to review these documents and provide their thoughts on these draft work products. There's going to be another set of documents that are going to be issued for public comment in the coming weeks. We'll take that, the idea is we're going to take that public feedback, that public comment, and then integrate that into the next round of drafts of these work products. And that will be something that we use sort of move towards completion of the plan. So with that, Amy, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and board members.
Turn it on. Push the button. On it.
But it's black. But it's red now. Should be the opposite. Okay, thank you, Nick, and good evening, Chair and board members. I'm Amy Herman with ALH Urban and Regional Economics, and I'm the lead consultant for this very much team effort in producing the LDBP for you and the community. Our team has 7 different firms and individuals, but in fact, our work products so far have been the result of the efforts of over 20 different people spread among those 7 firms. So, as I said, it's very much a team effort in what we've been producing so far. We wanted an opportunity to come before you just to share with you that we're making progress, that we've been working very diligently on this project, and to touch on just some of the highlights of our work efforts for you so you get a feel for what's coming down the line. The work that we've been doing so far are pretty much background materials and inputs that will contribute to the final plan that we'll be formulating a little bit later in the process. So our hope had been, I don't mean to, ideally, Chris Sentieri, who is our project manager, wanted to be here tonight to make our presentation. He unfortunately had a commitment in Santa Clara until 5:30 this evening. He is on his way, but we all know what the traffic around here is like. So if he comes, he will step in for us. But in the meantime, we have very ably Byron Paxter with Optany, who is a key member of our team, who's going to hit on some of the key deliverables and just some of the key, very high-level findings that we have so far for you, and just explain to you the process going forward.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. First off, congratulations on the approval of your CPUC implementation plan. My name is Byron Paxter. I'm an energy engineer, Berkeley resident, and future EBCE customer. I'm also a team member of the Local Development Business Plan, helping you deliver the vision created since the steering committee meetings at the Castro Valley Library, most of which I was lucky enough to attend. I apologize that the Local Development Business Plan, which was anticipated for delivery in its complete form by this time, is only being presented at the halfway mark. This is a schedule of tasks that have been completed and tasks that will be completed in 2018. Due to complications arising from the dismissal of the previous Energy Strategy Consultants, EES, and additional technical review processes for the LDBP work products and internal budgetary concerns from the agency's management, the complete Local Development Business Plan is now anticipated for delivery in April next year. Work products from most of the tasks are now posted on the agency's website, ebce.org. We encourage everyone to review and give their input on these documents. There are some of the posted documents in this list. I'd like to start off with the feed-in tariff, which provides a special rate for local energy generation. It has innovative market-responsive pricing and community benefit adders to incent projects with specific beneficial attributes. Also posted is the Agency as Developer program, which allows EBCE to stimulate new development by bundling pools of similar projects and encouraging participation by multiple stakeholders. Alameda County was a pioneer in this process under the RREP program developed by the county that was launched around 2015. The LDBP recommendations on workforce development are also posted, and we encourage your feedback. I'd also like to thank members of the public and members of the board that attended the June focus groups for local development planning. Oops. And I'd encourage you to attend the second round of stakeholder engagement workshops on local development planning starting at the beginning of next year. So thank you. I think, it's best to turn it over to you guys for questions rather than, me going on and on about this.
Questions? Okay. Well, let's see what the community has to say then.
Sure.
Victor Uno, Kevin White, Al Weinrab.
My name is Kevin White. I founder of Sunwalker Energy and started following EBCE back in 2015 at the steering committee meetings, and really saw the core values that EBCE, or at that time Alameda County and those joint cities were putting together, and decided to build a business around it. And at that time, went out into the community and began to work with landowners as well as building owners in building or developing renewable energy, and mainly solar farms out on the East County. And so over the past 2 years, we've been steadily developing with Alameda County and the permitting agency, as well as with PG&E and in our efforts for interconnection. And so we've gotten to a point today where in 2018, in June, our first project has its commercial operation date. And that's right around the same time that EBCE is scheduled to launch. We've built this business really around, the core values that we're using all union labor, procuring all our equipment from in-county suppliers. We have educational programs. We plan on purchasing a school bus very shortly, converting it to electric, putting solar panels all over it so that we can go and pick up local children from school and bring them to the solar farms for field trips. And more recently, I've been developing a strategy on how we create local ownership within county with a component for low income as well, so a low income ownership component. But today, if we look at June of 2018 at launch, having a project that could be providing power from in-county, and then work our way back, we would need to start construction in about March. And so today, it's a great story. It's something to look forward to, but it's not possible. And it's not possible because we don't have a power purchase agreement. And for us to go and go through the process of financing, to go through the process of construction, we need to have a power purchase agreement in the next, call it 30 to 60 days. And without that, we wouldn't have a project in county, to my knowledge and to the knowledge of other folks that we're working with, that we would be able to have at launch and providing power to the county from in-county resources, which I know is really the core of what we're all trying to achieve here. So I ask for your support and maybe putting a path together on how we get to that. Our project as part of the LDBP would be a feed-in tariff project. It wouldn't be through an RFP. It wouldn't, again, it would be within this program that's being developed that we would have. So appreciate it and continue the great work. Thank you.
Victor Uno, Al Weinrab.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Haggerty and board members, Victor and IBW. I want to speak to, on this issue of the LDBP, on the workforce development component of this, and I hope people do get a chance at least to read the overview and introductions. There's been some incredibly thoughtful and productive work, and I think the process that Chris Sintieri and his team involved community and labor with was very important to developing this plan. And then it's up to the board and hopefully directing the director and others who are going to be guiding this agency, what are the values, and then how do you proceed forward? Are you going to go high road, good wages, good jobs, sustainable careers? Are you going to go low road? And I think that this issue of workforce development, speaking on behalf of apprenticeship programs that have churned out literally hundreds of young men and women in sustainable careers with good jobs, retirement, healthcare plans. These young men and women need to continue to work, and this is why it connects to the previous speaker, Sunwalker, and to speak to the chair's concerns about, okay, so we missed the ball on the call center. It's in Sacramento. We missed the ball on the bank service. Let's not miss the ball on a power purchase agreement that can be signed to create for a CCA out of the box a project that is going to be doing good work to build renewable projects within the county. As a member of Alameda County since 1970, this is a wonderful project. I think we can do this. We can not just promise jobs, local sustainable careers, but we could actually deliver. And so this is why I'm here on behalf of the IBEW to speak in favor of the Sunwalker project, and also to say that supporting apprenticeship programs that are in San Leandro with the sheet metal workers, with the electricians. We have 2 apprenticeship programs. We have a proven track record of serving communities, hiring people with from communities that are disadvantaged. Our African American component of our programs is higher than the county average population. So we are diverse, we are inclusive, and we would ask that you as a board to guide this process forward. Don't get a third strike. Please try to get a local project going immediately, shovel ready out of the box. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Al?
Good evening, board. I wanted to just say a couple things about the local development business plan. I know with the presentation you don't quite get the excitement of what's going on in terms of some of these work products that are being developed here. Feed-in tariff, it sounds like a little bit wonky, but it's basically a standard offer contract. But what's really interesting about this particular program, it has adders. In other words, you get if you're producing energy, you get a higher payment for it if you meet certain conditions. And those conditions are those that really benefit low-income people. They benefit the built environment. They benefit, storage capacity and things like that. So it's very, very innovative, this notion of putting into the program stuff that has direct community benefits. The same with the collaborative procurement that Byron talked about, which is you basically aggregate all the hospitals or all the schools or whatever it is, or houses in a neighborhood or whatnot, as the program in order to make the development of renewable energy, solar, for example, happen when individual building owners don't want to take the risk or can't take the risk or don't have the technical capability. And then, of course, the workforce development stuff that's also up there, very, very innovative in the sense that, the best expert in the country, up here at UC Berkeley has been working on this. So you don't have quite, until you get into this stuff, get that this is really novel, this is really very innovative stuff. I just want to say that originally the idea was that the local development business plan would be completed around this time. It's been stretched out quite a bit, and not planning on being, there's a lot of more work products and it won't be completed until much later on, which caused a little contradiction in the sense of what Kevin White was drawing out is that if the local development business plan had been finished now, we could start to think about making some commitments to projects, that could work, in the beginning of June, roll out and furnishing energy. But because it's been delayed, it's hard to make those commitments. And so, there is some reason to be thinking about, doing having a commitment that's a very, very limited commitment that wouldn't impact the overall procurement system, but would allow things to start to move because they're the kinds of things that we want to do. And just, if I could just take one other 30 seconds to say that drawing out this process and having the kind of community engagement that we're talking about is a lot of work. I was on the committee that selected this particular vendor. It was a $500,000 basic maximum contract. This particular vendor came in and bid more or less 15% above that and said that 15% would be pro bono work, right? So they already had in their process of sort of giving of their time and energy to make this happen. And now by stretching it out and these delays and whatnot, it actually causes quite a financial burden. So I wanted to just sort of put in your minds the notion that the expense is actually higher than their expenses are higher, and we can't afford to be having them lose money to do this great work. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions at this point? Director Albrecht.
So the presentation that the Community Advisory Committee got was somewhat more robust. And so, and since that time, these products have been placed on the website. So as an individual, not as the chair exactly, but as an individual who's been going through these things, some questions came up for me as I've now read them all. And I'd love the chance to clarify those, which might actually give you a little bit more of a presentation if you're open to it. So my first question came on the framing on the website. My understanding is that tasks 1 through 4 are underlying assessments that will lead to development of the plan as opposed to the plan itself. And this is the information that we will use to create our own energy resources as opposed to you telling us this is what you're going to do. Is that correct?
Yes, good evening, and I apologize for my delayed arrival, and thanks for having me. I think that's a correct assessment. Tasks 1 through 4, as structured in the RFP, were meant to provide sort of the underlying quantification of the potential and really some analysis of some of the program ideas that might be out there. The draft documents that have been posted for review do not in any way, shape, or form really reflect our final recommendations for the program. And so that's important context for those who are reviewing those documents to understand it's sort of a starting point. It was intended to create a dialogue and a starting point for that dialogue, for us to get some feedback from you, the board, the CAC, the community, the panel of experts that the CEO has put together. So that's a fantastic process. We're very comfortable with that. It's leading us to a point now in early part of next year where we can actually model the impacts of a various different scenarios, less aggressive, more aggressive, various changes to those initial draft documents that you'll see if you review them, right? So that analysis that would tell you the impacts to the budget and what the actual impacts to the community in terms of the economy, job creation, those sorts of things, that will be coming in Q1 of next year. And so I just want to make sure that everyone is clear when you're reading those documents. We would love to get feedback, but don't assume that that's our final recommendation.
So what we have posted on the website is functionally 2 maps. Like there's a map, you can click on it, and it'll show you all the places in Alameda County that maybe you could have solar and wind, but there's no feasibility or anything else. And those are the 2 solar and wind siting surveys, more or less. It's like so that we can look at actual costs for land and labor and all that kind of stuff, and you were to compare those projects across the board, right?
That's correct. And so there is some feasibility work there. There's additional economic feasibility that's part of that modeling work that I'm talking about that would come in the early part of next year. And so there is some additional detail coming. But those documents, the solar and wind siting surveys, are meant to give you a sense of what the technical potential in Alameda County for those resources are. That's not to say that we're going to build that much. And part of what the CAC chair is talking about is we will put some qualifiers in there and say, based on the cost constraints and our endeavor to limit the impact on the budget and the rates, we think this is what's actually feasible. Right, so that's work, again, that would be coming in the early part of next year as part of the modeling and what will ultimately become the plan that we put forward.
So then tasks 3 and 4 are actually the fun, sort of meaty ones where you're like, maybe this could actually work. But one of them is like, these are the tools that exist in the world, and if you choose to use these tools, these are approaches that we think you could use. And also, we've identified some problems in those tools as it could be applied in this particular county. So, for example, the feed-in tariff, which Al was right, is quite a different approach than has been taken in the past, says because this is expensive, but we'll get things rolling really fast, here's our rollout strategy, so this is never too expensive at any given moment, and it has a maximum of 3 per quarter? Is that 3, right?
It's currently set at 5, and these things are all flexible and things that we can discuss. And again, in the scenarios that we put forward and analyze, we can actually make changes to some of those assumptions.
Okay. So, and then it gets up to a maximum. So we have this feed-in tariff thing, but it goes to here. So that's a fast but kind of expensive way to stimulate local things. And then the agency as developer is more like, here's a less expensive way to do this thing, but it's going to take a longer period of time to roll out. And so even though that may be a better tool financially, it doesn't give us anything local, like Victor was talking about. Is that more or less?
Well, it will deliver local. So the difference between them, the feed-in tariff is something that could be launched essentially immediately when the program is live. And so that's a strategy that can get things going pretty quickly. We've seen fantastic impact from feed-in tariffs in other places. We think that's a strategy that can work and work quickly and work fast. We have endeavored to limit the impact on the budget and the rates, and also to engineer ways to deliver the community benefits that the LDBP sort of stands for. And so we think that the feed-in tariff design that we've put forward is very innovative and strikes a balance between protecting the budget and the rates and delivering those community benefits that I think all of you are interested in seeing this program deliver. The agency as developer program is a way to sort of get to scale, to build in many different places under a single RFP and get to 5 or 10 megawatts in a pass and get that cost down per kilowatt hour, right? So that's a more, we think, sustainable long-term strategy that gets more power at a lower cost. That takes a little more time to pull together. There's many pieces, moving parts and staffing issues that have to get put into place for that program to work. And so we're trying to give you a staggered, phased-in strategy that, again, protects the budget and delivers the benefits that the LDBP is looking for.
Okay. And then the adders that Al talked about are things like, if you build in an already built environment, we'll pay you whatever more. If you do small scale or small businesses or something like that, then we'll pay you more than if you go out to open space and use that kind of stuff.
Yes. So there's sort of a baseline amount that all projects would get if they go through the feed-in tariff program. And then to incentivize those local benefits that we're talking about, we put in adders. There's an environmental justice adder. There's a social justice adder. There's a dispatchability or energy storage adder. These are enhancements over the typical feed-in tariff program that are meant to deliver those community benefits that we're talking about.
And then workforce development will defer to Victor for sure. Thank you for your comments on that. My basic understanding of this is that there's different ways to stimulate local workforce development, and that this one is looking at, as opposed to reinventing training programs, setting requirements that make people use union labor and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the way we differentiate it in the document, you'll see this if you read it, is it's sort of supply and demand, right? That this county has an amazing infrastructure of workforce training programs already in place. And we're making the case, those are sort of supply. They train the workers up and you have a supply of workers. We're making the case that EBCE is in a better position to create the market, the demand for those jobs by putting standards in place. With all the projects you would develop, we are going to have strong requirements that really work with the existing infrastructure for training and workforce development and the existing agreements that are in place with labor and other things. So we're not reinventing that wheel. Instead, we're creating the market and the demand for those jobs. That's the recommendation in the current draft form of that document. We have spent a fair amount of time working closely with labor and community groups to make sure that's in line with their expectations, and we'll work with the system that's in place.
So for this board, I will say that the process of the task being published on the website, the 30-day comment period, all of those comments being published simultaneously so everyone can see them. We would really like to thank CEO Chassett for bringing that transparency and inclusion in. That was a very clear response to the community on this board, and so we'd like to recognize that. That comment period does end December 3rd. You are all cordially invited on December 4th to join what is guaranteed to be a robust discussion on if the CAC will be making particular recommendations or advice on that. It will also be the first meeting that our new vice chair will be running, so that should also be loads of fun. And the biggest questions that will be running, it'll be the first meeting that I miss. The meeting. So the CAC meeting on December 4th, prior to this board meeting on the 6th, there will be a big discussion on these tasks. So even if it's just for education on them, there's some really smart people in that room who get really heavy into discussion on these things. So you're encouraged to join. And then the biggest questions that came up for us during this discussion on Monday was questions around EBCE funding state-level studies and not Alameda County studies. Looking at, there was some response to, we have to make sure this integrates in, but there's definitely still some question and discussion about why EBCE is footing the bill for a statewide study and not sharing that cost.
To be clear, I think you're referring to the More Than Smart initiative and not the LDBP project itself, right? The review, yes.
So, I don't know how big of an event you asked for the comments. My assumption is that it's a pretty small group of people that know about it being up on the website. So I don't know how we get out the word to Alameda County that this is up on the website and you should comment, because let me be clear. Although I support the training of individuals to learn good paying union jobs with health care benefits, because if they don't have those, they become a part of my system, which I hear is okay, but it's not something you want to really be a part of. And I do support that. Victor will tell you that anytime somebody comes in to my office to say they want to do something out in the Altamont, I say, that's great, go talk to the unions. So he'll agree with that. So will Andy Slifka, or Andreas Kluver, or any of them that are involved in workout. They know that next place they go when they leave my office is to the union to talk to them, where I support that. But when I walk around the community in which I represent, and I talk to them about the CCA, what they're interested in is this going to lower my bill? So I would caution, as we move forward with this, how much you think you can load into it. And if you think that the people that live in my district, Fremont, Livermore, and Dublin, are going to pay more, I got news for you. They're not. They will switch to PG&E. I hate what I'm about to say, but lickety split. Okay?
Yes.
It's not going to happen. They will bail quick. And then if I'm wrong, I got two of my city council members sitting next to me. One chose not to show up tonight. Big fundraiser for Gavin Newsom, I guess. I'm just telling you, you better be careful.
We take that very seriously. We think the name of the game is cost competitiveness. And in fact, everything that we are doing and putting forward will go through that lens. If it's something that we felt would require you to raise rates, it's not going to be in the final plan. That's a commitment we can make as a team where we take that very seriously. We do believe there are a lot of things you can do without having to raise the rates. And that's the sweet spot that we're looking for in the LDBP.
I didn't say raise rates. People want to pay lower rates. Even though there's not a lot of love for PG&E right now, they want lower rates. They're not afraid we're going to raise the rates. They're not afraid the rates are going to stay the same. They want lower rates. Yes. And even my own wife, she's giving me a hassle. Why would we want to change? I mean, this is in my own house. So just be careful.
We will.
I'll second that wife comment.
Yeah.
I have the same experience when I explain this to her. So it's I have a very comfortable couch for a reason. So
Yeah. Yeah, me too, unfortunately. Who else? Nobody else? Okay.
Can I make one comment before we move on? I thought we have a bunch of energy. I had as much energy as Al Weiner when he got up here and said, "You're not excited about this."
Well, you didn't really fire us up, I got to be honest.
So I thought we were already there, and
you kind of snoozed us.
To excuse myself, I did have to cover for Chris at the last minute, so this is a few hours of preparation. I did want to say, in terms of the cost piece, I did present the feed-in tariff and the agency as developer as a balancing act, and I don't think that was clear, obviously, as I rushed through it, but these are presented together for a reason, because when you look at the feed-in tariff, you think, well, what are we using that for? We're using that as bait to get people to develop, right? And we're saying, here's an incentive, come and develop, hurry it up, right? That's your gas pedal, right? And then if they're showing up and saying, hey, we want to develop, but it's going to cost you double, it's going to affect people's rates, right? That's where the agency developer piece comes in, because you say, you know what, what's your overhead that this is costing us so much to get done? We're the agencies, and all of these cities, we've worked with them all to do this, to bring the cost of local solar, fuel cells, et cetera, down by 15, 20%, headed towards wholesale rates. And that's by leveraging your power, by getting the legwork done ahead of the developer. So you just say, you know what, we did everything. How can you show up and tell me that this is going to cost double? All you have to do is build it, right? So there are these two push-pull factors that you have at your disposal. So one is the feed-in tariff. You're not getting enough development, you juice that up, right? It comes in too high, market responsive pricing. You say, no, we're not going to pay that. You come in as the developer. The agencies work together. They bundle projects. All the schools, all the municipal facilities, all the big warehouses. That's such a resource, in South County. And you say, okay, we're going to put these all together. You want to charge us that much? No, we're going to do it for less. So you've got these great tools. And the idea really is, you want to head towards a wholesale equivalent price. And you don't want to just have these premium products that are not available to everyone. You don't want to just launch at day one with the local 100 rate people can take, but it's twice what PG&E is. Because those people can leave. And we all know inside the CCA world, if they leave, you don't get a chance. You can't pursue them. You cannot remarket to CCA exiters. So if they're gone forever. So how do you launch that local 100, for people that really want it, and still beat PG&E's price? And the LDWP has so much data at our disposal. I think more data than not only any other team member has, but more than any CCA has ever had. We have the customer load data with such a resolution that PG&E doesn't even look at it as clearly as we do. So we can put pieces of that together in ways, stack these different programs. And so, when everyone glazes over and says, you're just going to subsidize it, that's not at all the purpose here. And I know that Chris has another comment on that, I'm sure.
Well, the only thing I'll add, and thanks for the extra time, I'll say there are many other strategies that are coming, and I would again caution you, when you read the feed-in tariff and the agency developer, that does not make the LDBP. Those are components, those are elements. There are others coming. Energy storage contracting strategy, rate design as an incentive, how to provide rate savings to people and get them to do the kind of things that we're talking about in the LDBP. These are all pieces that are coming very soon, this next month. And so I would, again, just ask you to read the things that are there, give us comments, understand that there's more work coming that will provide the whole basis to judge the LDBP early part of next year.
The other thing that I would remind you is this organization here owes Alameda County somewhere around $3 million. And that needs to be thought about up front, because we did have an agreement that as the money starts coming in, Alameda County gets paid back first. Yes. And that needs to be reminded. And I realize I'm the county rep here, but I'm here to keep reminding you all that that's what we said we would do. The county needs to be made whole. That's another thing that made this CCA unique, is the county actually fronted all the money to get this going, where in other CCAs throughout the state, everybody had to put skin in the game to be a member. So don't forget that as you're developing this too.
Chair, I just on the point around cost. One of the things that we're working closely with Chris and the team around is not just looking at local development, but really like what is the cost of energy going to be for EBCE next year. So we're in the process of doing a very deep assessment of what the cost of energy for us is going to be. And that's really going to give us a sense of what our budget is for some of these more expensive things. Understanding that we have to beat PG&E on costs. That's the only way we're going to be competitive and be able to go out there and market something that our residents and our businesses are going to find compelling. And frankly, those savings to those customers, residential, that's a form of economic, that's money in their pocket, and that's money that gets recycled in the community. So I think that's also an important consideration for us to remember, is that is also a form, that benefit is really significant. When every resident of Alameda County is saving $5, $10, $15 a month, or businesses are saving hundreds or thousands of dollars a month on their bill, that is money that gets recycled in the county. That's something that we're certainly focused on.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, Director Martinez, and then Director Hahn.
I just have a comment for staff. Thank you for the presentation, Chris. Even you rolled in, you walked right up to the microphone and owned it. But for staff, I would highly prefer that the next time an item like this that is so meaty and so weighty and so important to the public and to the board comes forward, that even if it's brief, I need a staff report. And, one thing that could have been provided here for transparency for the public is a link to the materials that are on the website. And I know they're there. And I know that in our world of people, the 38 folks who follow this very intensely and very closely, they all know those that's there. I know Anna Olivia has poured over the documents. But I would just appreciate the chance when these types of items come to the board that we have a clear idea of the nature of the feedback that you need from us on a given night. So I think it's very important for us to get updated on the LDBP, and I continue to look forward to where it's going, especially when we get to the end of the tasks and we have all of your recommendations. But I want to make sure that the board is clear on what you need from us, and that all of our agendas are transparent to the public. Thank you.
Sophie.
Thank you. I hope I'm not asking a question that everyone else knew the answer to, but I was surprised by your comment that once somebody opts out, we can never remarket to them. And I just wondered if you could just briefly clarify that. Does that mean we can't contact them directly because we don't have their name, because we're not in a relationship with them? Or does that mean we can't even do general community billboards and radio ads saying come back to East Bay Community Energy or something? I just didn't know that little tidbit, and that seemed really salient to me. I'd like a little more information on that.
Sure. So by statute, the policy is that you cannot market to your customers individually once they leave. So your terrific benefit is that this is an opt-out program, which means as long as everyone sees this as beneficial and they take no action, then they stay participants. Once they voluntarily, intentionally exit the program and are no longer participants, you cannot pursue them individually and solicit them to join again. I don't think there's anything that stops you from having billboards or radio ads, and I think your best advertising is going to be word of mouth when people are really excited about getting a local 100 clean energy product for cheaper than PG&E. But specifically the problem, that the other Bay Area CCAs see and know is that you have to watch your opt-out because that is permanent.
Okay. Can PG&E market trying to get people to opt out?
No, they cannot.
Okay. All right.
And it took a special second action in the legislature to make sure that they cannot market against you.
Okay. Well, that's actually very salient. I mean, I always knew that it was important not to have opt-outs, but I didn't realize that you were further constrained in that very specific way. That makes it even more important. Thank you.
And, you know, in addition to the work products that we discussed, I'd also encourage you all to, you know, become familiar, if you're interested, in the wind siting survey, which actually went into, you know, industrial state-of-the-art wind resource mapping. We took all the parcel maps, cross-referenced those across the wind resource, brought in the PG&E interconnection maps, that is, which feeder lines have capacity, and actually identified, you know, megawatts and megawatts of potential wind projects that could potentially be developed by each of these agencies, you know, for its own revenue. And then the solar siting survey, which went in, mapped out across, huge effort across the entire county, you know, hundreds and hundreds of roofs surveyed, same process, identified feeder capacity. It's all very technical, but, you know, it is a ton of work, and we did it for you, so hopefully you have time to take a look. Thanks again.
All right. Anybody else? That we did the public comment on that. This issue is done. Board member comments or staff announcements? Staff announcements.
No staff announcements.
Okay, you've had enough anyways. Board member comments? Well, I got something very exciting to say. We're adjourned. Thank you.